time. I am between you and the lunch. Right? And difficult to keep you awake at this point of time. Okay, I'll try to justify it. And thanks for the previous speaker for setting the contest. And thank you to the organizers, Mr. Goel and Kaur, for giving me this opportunity to be here. Starting with where he left, and there are some questions which are very pertinent in terms of the certification. See, each government body or regulatory bodies have their own regulatory mechanism. Say, for instance, if you go to USA, US FDA approvals, the certifications, if that particular regulatory authority is giving a certificate authorization in India, that particular certification is valid. So, if you take any certification in any other country, that can be only reference. But then either FSSI or this regulatory body, which they have notified the places from where NABL accredited labs in India or anywhere else, if that certification is taken from that particular certified lab, then only it is valid in India. Fortunately, we do all the tests what he said in our lab, which is NABL accredited, and there are few more labs like CPET and other labs, they also do this test. We also do the self-life studies, as it was discussed yesterday, accelerated as well as normal self-life studies. And the topic which we are going to discuss in terms of the safety part, we do global migration as well as specific migration for the safety aspect according to Indian standard, European standard as well as US FDA. The best part on paper is, globally, paper is the least regulated packaging material. You take European Union or even US FDA, and India also the regulations are not very comprehensive from the consumer's point of view. Now, if you take an example, if you are drinking water from a plastic cup and the paper cup, do you drink? So, which is more safer? Any inputs? Don't get biased because you are from the, probably the paper cup, right? Now, why is so? Now, when you say that particular packaging material is safe, what it means? See, if you look at, I'll give you a broader prospect before I think I'll just run through some of the slides and I'll go to that. I'm not going in details because I think this will kick up very fast. So, if you're talking of the basic function of the packaging, it should protect, contain, communicate and facilitate in handling. And the paper as such is not help you in terms of getting the required property to be used as a packaging material, and hence the coatings has to be done. Now, when you're talking of coatings, the earlier chemicals which you see that are PFAs and PFCs, mostly when they are used in the case of coatings, and this exposure of these chemicals has a health problem such as low birth weight and delayed puberty onset and elevated cholesterol and so many things. There are so many literatures available on this, so I'm not going in details of this. Now, when you are talking of coating materials, the mechanism, apart from this, you use the normal other plastics like polyethylene or PET or PBET, or it can be waxes. So, these are some of the coating materials used. Now, coming back to the very important aspect which we were talking about, when you take any packaging material, you have to say which is safe. How you say when you are eating something in the paper or in the plastic or in the glass or tin or even aluminum cans, it is a safe. Because that has to be a very, very important aspect to look at. Irrespective of the material what you are using, there has to be a standard protocol process where you say that when you are eating any food or packing food and then taking food and eating from there, it should be safe. So, first important criteria is it should not endanger the human health. This is a basic underlying aspect. To get that why, how it will not endanger the human health, the other aspects has to be looked at. Then, when you are packing something, it should not change the organoleptic property of the food material itself. It should not change. You see, you are given a particular quality and that quality gets deteriorated in terms of the nutritional aspect or maybe organoleptic aspects. That is also important in terms of deterioration as well as acceptable changes. Now, these are only two things. If you are able to get this, your material is safe. Now, to get this, what are the things you need to do, and the safety aspects and the regulatory matter comes into the picture. Now, coming to what he said, that when you are taking, you have a material and you are packing, you are taking the water in a sort of a paper cup and you are taking water into the plastic cup. But a lot of times in the paper cup also the plastic is coated. So, direct coming contact is plastic as such. Or even if you are doing some other coatings, you need to see what is that from the coating coming into the food and is that going to endanger the human health. So, that is where the whole regulation moves around. Now, coming to the drawbacks of the paper. If you look at the migration, paper components generally, some of them they may migrate into the food, and also there are some sort of other materials apart from the plastic based material which you are trying to put as a phthalates or surfactants or bleaching agents or hydrocarbons. When in the processing, when you are putting it, they generally, all of them, they don't go away, and when food comes in contact, they will interact and try to come into the food, and that can have issues. And also paper will have problems in terms of recycling. This is little old dated material, but in India, according to the statistics, more than 50% of the paper is not recycled as such. It is recyclable, but it is not recycled, it goes into the different stream altogether. So hence, compared to the other countries, our recovery of paper is a little lower. And also, it generates the waste. Coming to the health effect, when you are looking at the health effect, there are two components, the volatile and non-volatile components, and this, when they come in contact with the food, they create a problem. And most of the major additives which migrates from the paper or paper board are mineral oil, dyes, it can be organic, inorganic or synthetic, or phthalates. And this is where you need to look at how you control. Now, I am not going in details of the definitions of the mineral oils and their side effects. So, if you look at the side effects, you will have a bioaccumulation of these mineral oils, and that can have different issues in terms of liver or other human systems. Coming to PFAs, you will have problems in terms of the immune system, thyroid function, liver diseases, and lipid and kidney related issues. In terms of the phthalates, also it has very problematic is disruptive endocrine system causing premature deliveries and asthma related issues. So, these are in general the issues related with the compounds which migrates. Now, when you are talking of the food and the packaging material. What happens in the whole mechanism? So if you take food, something from the packaging material comes into the food, or from the food it goes to the packaging material, that is migration and scalping. Lot of times you are using the active and smart packaging systems. In active packaging systems, what you are doing, deliberately you are adding something from the packaging material to the food to increase the shelf life, or from the packaging material headspace you are scavenging and reducing the oxygen level or reducing ethylene level. So that sort of interaction happens. And across the packaging material, there are exchange of odors and flavors. Some flavors, what is there inside, it goes out, and then sometimes if there are some sort of a detergents or some sort of odors coming, that also gets into the food and creates the problem. And of course the gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and moisture. Also mechanical stresses, light and hygiene, all these are the factors continuously happens when you have packaging material and the food. And all of this can affect the shelf life as well as the safety aspect of the packaging material. Now, coming back to the safety part, when you are talking of any packaging material, how safe it is, the regulatory aspects what they do, that this is called as a positive list. Each regulatory countries, they put a positive list. Like say for instance, plastic. If it is a LDP, they give 200 to 300 chemicals which can be added to get the required properties. Even for paper, what are the additives you can add? The positive list is given. You cannot add anything which is not listed in the positive list. If you add it, the first level itself, your packaging material is not food grade. So it doesn't qualify as a food grade. So if you want to qualify that as a food grade, what you need to do, you need to incorporate the chemical compounds which you feel which are safe with your data to the regulatory agencies, and the regulatory agencies will add and update the positive list. The first criteria for any packaging material, let it be plastic or paper, is a positive list. And in the positive list, along with the positive list, there is a limits given called as a good manufacturing practices. They say that these are the chemicals, 20, 30 chemicals which you can add. You cannot add the way you want. There are regulatory limits. For some of the materials which are not very compatible for human health, so the limits are very stringent, and for which they are not that harmful, they say that till you get the required property, that is a good manufacturing practices. So number one, positive list. Number two, good manufacturing practices. Then comes the third important thing. Whatever you do, if you pack food into any packaging material, that exchanges will happen. Something from food goes to the packaging material to the food. Now the quantification of the total weight coming from the packaging material to the food, the quantification is called a global migration test. And the standards are given that out of the total this, 1 kg of the food, if you are packing in this much surface area of the packaging material, it should not exceed the limit. So that is a global migration. But generally these limits are very high. And there are some compounds which are in a very small quantity also can create a problem, like phthalates. If it is in a very small quantity, it can create a lot of problems. So it comes the specific migration. Based on whatever chemicals are allowed to be added, what are the raw materials which you are using, what chemical reaction can happen, and what byproduct it can produce. Based on all these, the chemical compounds which are coming, probably going to come, has to be determined. And this also depends upon, very importantly, what is food you are packing. If it is a water, it's a different aspect. If it is a acidic food, or it can be fatty or oily food, or it can be alcoholic food. In alcoholic food also, less than 10% alcohol, more than 40% alcohol. More the alcohol content, the extract coming out will be more. So depending upon what food you are packing, the simulants has to be used. If you use the actual food, if you use the pickle to measure the quantity of chemicals coming in, because pickle matrix itself so complex, you will not be able to identify which are the compounds coming into the food. So the simulants are used. The simulants try to simulate the actual food, and whatever coming from the packaging material to the food, the quantification has to be made. So once and for each these compounds, the limits are given, and if the limits, the values are within the limits, then your food is, the packaging material is food grade packaging material. So this is across all the varieties. It can be for aluminum cans, or it can be for plastics, or it can be for paper. So coming to the actual standards which regulations what we have in India, I'm not going in details. Basically, this indicates the focus of a particular country, how you are trying to address the regulatory issues. US FDA says it demonstrates the safety of their product through the testing and compliances with US FDA, aiming to protect consumer from any harmful subject. But European Union in general says that prioritizing the consumer safety and uniformity across the globe. So more or less the aspects are similar. Now if you look at the US FDA, why I am giving this? The reason is, in India, the standards are not yet properly framed. And yesterday we had a meeting, and we are going to bring a very strict standards on packaging of paper also. Because a lot of times people feel that eating in the plastic is very harmful. Not necessarily. And eating in the paper is always safe. If you go on the street food, I think you should not listen to this. If you go to the street food in India, more than 20-30% food is served on the newspaper. On the newspaper, you have a lot of minerals and micronutrients printed on it. So it's so good to the health, and because of that, FSSAI has banned using the newspaper, printed newspaper, to be used for the packaging material. But how many of us honestly refuse to take it and ask the person who is serving, this is illegal, you are doing it? Generally it doesn't happen. So my point is, only the regulation framed by the government alone is not going to serve the purpose. All the three pillars, the government regulations, the operators, business operators, and the consumers, more of the consumers. Now there is a penalty on the business operator. If he uses the newspaper, he will be penalized. But now we are thinking that we should penalize the consumer also if he or she eats the food on the newspaper printed, where you have a lot of minerals and micronutrients which can be very helpful. Now point is, it is not just on the lighter side I am telling. Now I am inviting the paper manufacturers to be part of the regulatory mechanism and see how best you can bring the regulatory aspect. So I'll just run, less than 7 minutes, I'll just run through the regulatory aspects of different countries and where we stand as in India. So if you look at the US FDA, there is a classification of all these chemicals used in the paper, and I'm sure most of you know it. Now point here I'm making is, there is in the US FDA, the method is the extraction method, that you take a total residues, how much it is coming, and there is a procedure how to extract the compounds coming out of it. And then if it exceeds a particular limit, then you will have chloroform soluble extracts, and then it is corrected to that, and then is a zinc soluble extract. Now, how this is done, as I told, each type of food has a different reaction to the packaging material. So based on this, if you take a non-acidic food, water is used as a simulant. If you take an acidic food where pH is more than 5%, I think it is opposite, it should be 3. Yeah, 3% acetic acid is taken, and if it is oil and fat along with the aqueous material, N-heptane is taken as a sort of simulant. Alcoholic beverages, more than and less than 10%, 10% and 50% of the alcohol is used as a simulant. So similarly, these are the combinations mostly US FDA uses, and we adopt on the similar line for this. So these are the classifications according to European standard. European standard also, they are not synchronizing all of them, but German standards is more or less matching with this. So if you take the classifications, one is the raw material, then the production aid, and then special paper refining agents. These are different categories which have been added. Now, these are the migration limit. Another interesting part where you see in India, no recycled paper can be used for food contact application. It cannot be used. Any recycled paper, it goes as a non-food category. Any printing portion cannot come in direct contact with the food. It is non-compliance. Now, but some of the places in Europe, they allow the recycled paper also to be used, but with putting some sort of a restrictions on in terms of the compliances. So there, if you look at this, these are some of the compliances. I am not going into detail. I think this presentation is there with all of you, so you can have a look at it. Now coming to Indian standards. Indian standard mostly talks of the performance of the packaging material. It doesn't talk much on the safety part of it. So if you look at the grease-proof paper or parchment paper, or foil laminate, or general purpose papers, or folding boxes, or corrugated fiberboard box. These are very generic one. But fortunately, we have only one type of test in terms of the heavy metals. So if you are using this for food contact materials, the heavy metals should not exceed a particular level. So these are the heavy metals. You will see type of packaging material, and the heavy metal limits are given, and the process is given there where you use. Now, only just looking at the heavy metals, you cannot say that the plastic or packaging material, a paper which is coming in contact with the food is safe. So you need to go and take some of the standards from the German standards as well as US FDA and sync them together so that whatever papers we are using for food contact materials, we will be able to look at it. Yeah, this is a little comparison. I'll just put it here. Now, if you look at the positive list, as I said, US FDA and some of the European countries, they have a positive list. Means these are the chemicals can be used for making food contact packaging material, which is not there, which is going to be formed. Now, my appeal to you is, when we are forming the positive list, your input also should be there. Otherwise, we will put some of the compounds which you feel that it is not toxic and it can be food grade, and if that is not coming into the positive list, whatever paper you make, it cannot be used as a food contact material. So that is very, very important. Then category of the food. What are different categories of the food? That also is not defined for the paper purpose. So that is also will be done. Coming to the category of the packaging material, yes, packaging material categories is defined. Then specifications on the coating and thickness and the coating materials. Now, what are the coating materials can be used for food contact applications, and what are its thickness and what are their ranges? That also is not defined, so that also is going to come. Then material compliances to the standard. How that is compliance in terms of the specific migration and global migration, and then migration test which will predefine. So there is no migration test on the paper that is going to come in terms of the extraction. Now there are two ways to look at it. One is you are taking different simulants and then extracting what is coming into the food. That is one method. That only simulates the food what you are packing. There is another method. You take the paper and use the solvent, universal solvents, and then take out all the compounds which are coming in and define the limits for it. So the European countries and US FDA, they use two different methods. Actually, for the plastic kind of paper, they exactly do the opposite. US FDA in the plastic, what they say, we don't know how much it is migrating into the food. That is not our concern. We take a paper, a plastic, and put the solvent and extract all the compounds, chemical compounds which are coming, non-volatile compounds, and we check what is the limit, whether it's within the limit or not. But the European standards, which we have adopted some of them, says that we are not worried how much it is there into the packaging material. But when we have a packaging material packed the food, different types of food, what temperature you are storing. Sorry, I have to rush looking at the watch.
Hi, sir. It's very nice presentation regarding this complaints here, sir. So you mentioned this US FDA 176, 170 and 176, 180 for the paper and paper board. It only, I think, considered the component of the papers, but it does not consider anything about the barrier coating. So in that case, what should we consider?
No, see, generally, when you are talking of any migration test, it is material agnostic. It is a packaging related. What is your final packaging? And what you are going to use this for the food application. That is where it is taken. So, this is time bar. So, it doesn't cooperate. He says your time is over, you need to wind it up. This also works? Yeah. So, for this sort of a test, see, if you take a paper, so it is not just paper you have to test. When you're using paper post coating, so you have to do the coating, and then there also you are not doing this from both sides. You should know which side is coming in contact with the food. That portion is exposed, and the amount of compounds coming out of that is tested. So there is no need of separately testing your coating, because coating is a part of your package.
But generally,
does that answer your question?
But generally, like in 176, 170, the migration is always taking part from the fiber paper side, not for the coating side. So in that case, I think it's not valid, no?
Yeah, that's what I said. When you are talking of the extraction method, when you are putting the whole paper inside and taking extraction, then everything comes. So that is a method. Another one is just you are putting the portion which comes into contact with food, and then because that is only actually effective areas where it migrates the chemical compounds.
So there is another one.
In India, we don't have a standard. So you don't worry at this point of time, but you give your input. Which form of the migration aspect you feel it is better with the reason. And then that can be implemented.
So there is another one like this 175 300, which is mainly for the polymerous coating and resinous coatings. So why this is not considered for the test in UFFDR?
See, you're talking of which, USFDA?
Yes.
See, for Indian standard, in USA there is no value. For US standards in India, it is only notional value. From regulatory point of view, there is no value. Up to you what you want to get it tested. Regulation says there is no regulation. You understand? So once if it is adopted with modifications, then it becomes Indian regulation.
Got the point, yes.
You understand?
Yes. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question that as you mentioned that recycled paper is not acceptable in the food quality material in India, but it is acceptable in other country, European and other country. So it is because of the food quality of in Indian subcontinent or because of some other?
Because of the processing qualities. See, till last year, recycled plastic was not allowed to be used at all in India. Not at all. Just last month, the notification has come that recycled PET is allowed, because the robust method of cleaning in terms of recycling, and post that the migration aspect, the safety part of it is addressed. If that also is addressed in the paper, recycled paper with these riders, it can be in terms of, there is a traceability. In PET, there is a traceability. When you are using the PET to be recycled, it has to be traced from where it has come, for what it is used, how it has come. Till that super cleaning process, you clean it, the method is given, then you have challenge test. By chance, if this adulteration gets in to the system, how this system is going to clean the adulteration or the toxic materials, and then once it comes out, it is no toxic materials are available, then it is near close to the virgin material, and once it is safe, then it can be used. So PET, rPET is used, recycled PET is used now, or allowed as a recycling material for food contact application, not other materials. You cannot use PE, or you cannot use PP, you cannot use other materials, because there is no standard protocol for the purpose.
So in the same way happened with the paper, then it will be acceptable.
Yeah. See, as an industry body, because I tell you, we are very proactive.
Yes.
As an industry body, you come out with the method, a foolproof method, that if you use the recycled paper, the problems with the recycled paper in terms of the health effect, if it is, that is taken care in your processing system.
But this acceptance range, who will regulate it? That means till now it has been happened that this is the threshold
At
limit.
the end, it is regulated by food authority. Anything related with the food from last year onwards, it is regulated by FSSI.
Okay.
But the guidelines has to be set, industry participation has to be there in terms of the guidelines, and the technical team, the panel on scientific panel on packaging, they will go through the recommendations and see, based on that the standards will be made.
Okay. Thank you.
A duplex board with a virgin layer will pass for the food grade, or will be considered as a recycled board?
Yeah.
Tricky
So
one,
generally the contact material, in multi-layer material also, the contact material only is very important. So in this case also the contact material.
Thank you.
Oh, only method, the USF, according to Indian standard, only heavy metal extraction method is defined. So hence, for India, only you can use the heavy metal analysis, extraction method. There is a procedure, it's there in the presentation also. So I think we are running out of time. Thank you so much.